Good morning. Good morning. So I thought I would start by saying, how can you tell someone who is in fintech versus traditional banking? We don't wear ties in fintech, you know? You guys have to take your ties off at some point for real innovation to occur in Korea. You look, Steve is sitting there. He's one of my fellow speakers this morning. He doesn't have a tie on. I don't have a tie on. No, just joking. So I wanted to talk about the changes we're seeing. And first of all, thank you for your comments this morning. I think I'm excited by the opportunities in Korea. One of the great opportunities in Korea is you have such a strong technology base and very smart people. So I think for the fourth industrial revolution, South Korea can become a powerhouse of innovation. But we do have to change some of our thinking for financial services. But let's start with the technology. Now, we love technology. We these little things we carry around in our pocket, our smartphones, they have changed our life. And you see people, they'll camp outside of the stores to get the new Samsung or the new iPhone. So technology we get very excited about. But at the same time, technology has another side to it, which is it's always challenged society in terms of change. So let me tell you about a technology that was very disruptive 200 years ago. And this was the steam machine. And back in the early 1800s in London, the major industry of the time in the United Kingdom was textiles manufacturing, textile industry. And the introduction of the steam machine automated the factories for what they call the weaving loom. Now, at the time, this was extremely disruptive technology because prior to these steam machines that could run these weaving looms, you would need to spend maybe 4 or 5 years to be trained just to do the manual labor process. So the professionals of the 1800s that got paid the most, had the best jobs, were the textile workers, like bankers today. But when the automation came in, it suddenly changed employment significantly. Now, a child could operate this machine. And now we have child labor laws because of these changes. Now, the workers who had lost their jobs from the steam machine, they were not happy. So they used to go into the factories and smash up the steam machines with the sledgehammers and try and burn the factory down. And we came to call this group of affected workers Luddites. This is the term that we came with. Now, because they used to have this story that their leader was King Ludd or General Ludd. Now, we don't know if this person, Ned Ludd, actually existed, but the Luddites were a group of employees that had lost their job to technology. So we see the same pattern even today. 200 years later, we see companies like Uber very much changing the way we're working, and taxi drivers are losing their jobs. So in 200 years, the effect of technology on the economy and its ability to disrupt is the same. The difference today is it's speeding up. It's happening a lot faster than it happened 200 years ago. So we can see companies and entire industries affected much faster than we saw in the past. So when you look at these patterns, we appreciate that this is really about a structural change in the economy. When you look at the invention or the introduction of the combustion engine into the United States farming industry, which the agriculture industry was one of the biggest employers in the United States in the mid-1800s, you can see in 1850 in the United States, more than half of the US workforce was working in farming. And then today it's only 1%. You can see the reduction. The red line is the number of people working on farms. And the blue line is the number of tractors. This was the technology that disrupted farming. And you see a direct correlation. As more tractors were introduced, less people worked in farms. So we see this pattern occurring over and over again in many different industries. So the real question is, what is going to happen in financial services with the introduction of things like the blockchain, artificial intelligence, these types of changes we're seeing today? Well, let's look at how technology has affected banking. We start with the mainframe era. This was the first technology that impacted financial services in a major way back in the 1950s, 1960s. Then we have the self-service era, which was the ATM machine. And Paul Volcker, who was the chairman of the Fed in the US during the financial crisis, he said actually the only real innovation the US financial services industry had seen was the ATM machine. But then suddenly along came this new technology, the smartphone. And this is a very different shift. Rather than introducing technology into the bank, this is now taking the bank outside of the building, delivering the bank in real time to customers when and where they need it. So we talk about this being the start of the experience age. Now today, or yesterday rather, in the United States, Facebook had their annual developers conference they call F8. And they were showing many different types of technologies for mixed reality, virtual reality and augmented reality. Now today we carry around our smartphone and we be connected to the world and to our bank and all of this through this device. But in 10 years, we'll be wearing on our face glasses that have similar technology and augmented reality displays. And this will even further integrate this technology into our life. So the smartphone today, in terms of its impact on the world, in 10 years it's going to be smart glasses and artificial intelligence embedded in the world around us. So technology is going to be everywhere. And every company, whether it's a bank or a travel company or a taxi company, will need to be integrated into this technology layer. So it changes the way we think about revenue, the way we think about customers. This is a very big shift. So I want to talk to you about the augmented age. And these are the big 4 disruptive technologies we see coming that's going to change the way we live. The first of those is fairly obvious. It's artificial intelligence. And underneath artificial intelligence, we talk about robotics as a subset. Because every robot must have some form of artificial intelligence if it's autonomous. Now, do you know what the #1 selling robot is in households in America today? Well, there's 2 actually. One is robot vacuum cleaners. They can vacuum the carpet. 20% of all vacuum cleaners sold in the world today are now robots. So this is significant. But the second piece of AI or robotic technology is what we call the smart assistant or the home smart assistant. So we have Amazon Alexa, we have Siri. In the new Samsung, we have Bixby. This is new artificial intelligence. And over the next 10 years, we are going to start to converse with computers a lot. We'll be talking to our computer every day. Instead of getting onto a web page to book a restaurant or book a taxi, in the future you'll just say, "Hey Bixby, can you order me a taxi?" Or "Can you book me a flight to Hong Kong on Friday?" And it will do the rest for you. This is going to be a big change in our daily lives. But also we'll be using artificial intelligence to drive us to work with a self-driving car in 10 years. I mean, we're talking about so many changes based on this technology. It's going to change the way we live our lives. And it's also going to change the way we work. Now, when we talk about AI today, we're not talking about machines that are like a human you can have a conversation with. Not yet. We're not at that point. But we also already have AIs that are doing jobs better than humans, and I'll talk about that in a little while. The second is really where we combine all of these technologies into the world around us. So I talked about augmented reality and smart assistants. So this is really embedding technology in our life. The third disruptive theme is in the health services, health technology, and gene editing. We're talking about fintech here today, but one other industry that maybe will be disrupted even more than financial services is health. Because if you think about diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or heart disease or various genetic forms of cancer, we now have the technology because of computers to edit out those diseases from our DNA, like a bug in the software program. And in 20 years' time, this technology will change radically the way we think about healthcare. Now, you put all of these things together, and what you get is you get smart cities with smart infrastructure. And to be a competitive economy on the global stage over the next 20, 30 years, you have to rethink the way your economy is structured. It has to be structured around these smart technologies. One example of that is solar energy. Now, in 10 years' time, solar will cost 1/10 of what it costs to generate electricity through a coal plant today. So if you're an economy like the United States, which is saying, no, we don't want solar because we don't believe in climate change, we're going to bring back coal jobs to the United States, then in 10 years you've got a problem because you're paying far too much for electricity. Which is why China has stopped building new coal plants and is the biggest investor in solar technology today in the world.